Hello, I am Alon Burstein, a visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to give you the updates in the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the eve of October 29th, 2023 in the United States, and the morning of October 30th, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis are held in the Gaza Strip by the Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, are currently confirming there are 239 identified Israelis and foreign nationals that were kidnapped on October 7th, and emphasize that 40 Israelis are still considered missing. It is unclear at this point. The IDF is trying to find out if these are people that were kidnapped or if they were killed on October 7th. In addition, an Israeli official today stated that there has been an official decision by Israel to continue negotiating under fire. What that means is that all the pressure that was mounted on Israel to possibly forestall its ground invasion until it maximizes all attempts to negotiate, Israel has instead decided the ground invasion is going to continue so far as it has and more incrementally rather than a full-on invasion. But negotiations are going to continue, but it's going to happen under fire, meaning they're not holding off the ground invasion. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were rockets and missiles today sent from the Gaza Strip towards southern Israel and center of the country. Rockets today targeted Sderot, Nirim, the Eshkol area, and missiles were fired towards Gush Dan and the Shfela. There were sirens that went off in Tel Aviv, Holon, Kfar Saba, and Herzliya, and there were a couple of confirmed hits in these different towns. On to the IDF responses, the Israeli Defense Forces reported that it carried out last night over 450 air raids throughout the Gaza Strip. This is alongside the ongoing invasion that is happening in the north of the Gaza Strip. Among these, infrastructure of the Al-Azhar University in Gaza was attacked, and there were reports that this infrastructure, presumably some buildings may have been housing Hamas operatives at this point, it's not reported, were completely destroyed. In addition, several field commanders in Hamas were assassinated, and the IDF spokesperson stated today that the IDF intends to hunt down Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the orchestrator of the October 7th attack. The IDF intends to hunt him down until he is dead. In addition, Taysir al-Ghouti, who was one of the leaders in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, was assassinated today in Rafah. Interestingly, this announcement was not put out by the IDF. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad itself is the one who stated that he was assassinated. Some of the other fighting, there was an attempted infiltration by Hamas into Israel. Hamas Nukhba fighters emerged from a tunnel near the Erez crossing and a gun battle ensued. 4 of them were killed. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is now reporting over 8,000 people have been killed since the war began. Among these, 3,000 are children and over 20,000 people are injured. There are also reports that nearly 1,800 people are currently buried under the rubble and that it is impossible to get them out because of the fuel crisis. These numbers, I'm reminding everyone, I'm going to state in a minute with regards to humanitarian aid. These numbers right now are tentative. It has been very hard to get information out of the Gaza Strip in the last 48 hours, so they may vary in the coming days. In addition, the Palestinian Red Crescent stated today that the IDF ordered an immediate evacuation of the Al-Quds hospital, which is currently housing 14,000 people that are hiding. The hospital stated it cannot possibly evacuate these amount of people in any expedited way. And later in the evening, there were reports of heavy bombardments in the area. On to some of the humanitarian developments in the Gaza Strip. Internet and phone communication are gradually returning after they were knocked out on Friday. The IDF did not explicitly say that it knocked out the communications, simply communications fell. Elon Musk had stated previously that he would connect humanitarian aid agencies and the United Nations to the Starlink internet satellite network, which was then condemned by Israel. Relating to this, Elon Musk today spoke to the head of the Shabak, that's Israel's FBI, and stated that his offer to connect Starlink and deploy it in Gaza would obviously be coordinated with Israel and only relates to aid agencies and would not connect all Palestinians, meaning that he is aware that this will possibly aid Hamas and he does not intend to do that. In addition, President Biden today spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu and stated that there's an immediate need to increase humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, and alongside they also discussed efforts to release hostages. Amidst this, the Wall Street Journal reported that it is the United States that pressured Israel to restore internet to the Gaza Strip. This was later confirmed by the White House. So again, while Israel did not officially say that it knocked out communications in the Gaza Strip, the White House is saying that it compelled Israel to restore internet service to the Gaza Strip. In addition, UNRWA, that is the United Nations Relief and Work Agency, the agency that's specifically tasked with helping the Palestinians, reported today that their warehouses in the Gaza Strip were broken into by Gazans. Food storages were seen being carried away. So this relates to the ongoing humanitarian disaster in the Gaza Strip. The UN is saying that their infrastructures have been broken into. In the past, when the war broke out, there were reports that UNRWA's facilities were also broken into and fuel was stolen. Relating to the incoming humanitarian aid, 47 trucks entered the Gaza Strip today, which is a substantial increase compared to the previous days. And Israel also announced that it is activating a second water pipe to start channeling water to the southern parts of Gaza. When the war broke out, Israel cut off electricity and water supply to the Gaza Strip. Israel supplies between 10 and 20% of the water to the Gaza Strip. It is now activating a second water pipe. This is part also, officially, of Israel's ongoing plan to encourage Gazans from the north to move to the south of the Gaza Strip in order to get away from the impeding Israeli invasion. In addition, the New York Times, they reported that Israel has agreed to allow 100 trucks per day carrying food, water, and medical supplies to enter the Gaza Strip. But importantly, the report stated that Israel is also going to allow a limited amount of fuel to enter the Gaza Strip and to be distributed by the UN to hospitals and UN facilities. This is the part of the ongoing struggle between Israel and the United Nations. Israel is stating it is not going to allow fuel to enter into the Gaza Strip because it's going to be used by Hamas to operate its generators in the underground tunnels and to fire rockets. The United Nations, in turn, is stating the hospitals in the Gaza Strip are all collapsing because they don't have enough fuel for their generators, so there may be some breakthrough in the humanitarian aid relating to that. Moving on to the West Bank, 23 Palestinians were arrested throughout the West Bank. Among these were 4 Hamas activists, and 3 Palestinians were killed and 10 injured in confrontations with the IDF in the last 24 hours. More broadly, however, there has been a substantial increase in settler terrorism and violence against Palestinians since the war began. Specifically, 114 Palestinians in the West Bank have been killed since October 7. 6 of these were confirmed by settler violence, and in general, there's been a substantial increase in settler violence. There are now reports of at least 3 different Palestinian villages whose residents have fled after receiving threatening messages. Relating to this, today, the head of the Shabak and the chief of staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, noted in a meeting of the Special War Cabinet that the increased settler terrorism against Palestinians is in fact a burden to the IDF. They warn that it is diverting the IDF's attention and it is compromising Israel's legitimacy. Relating to this, the National Security Advisor in the United States, Jake Sullivan, also today condemned settler violence in the West Bank, days after President Biden did this as well, and France and the United Kingdom also issued similar condemnations. Moving on to the north, there was a lot more violent activity in the north after a few days of relative calm. There were today mortar fires sent from the southern Syria area into the Golan Heights. The IDF retaliated with airstrikes to the locations from where the mortars were shot. In addition, there were over 20 rockets fired throughout the Galilee from Lebanon. There was a direct hit in Kiryat Shmona. Relating to this, the Al-Fajr forces, which is a small independent organization in southern Lebanon, and Hamas in Lebanon, claimed responsibility for some of these attacks. That's important. It's not just Hezbollah that's operating. There was also a mortar fire sent towards an IDF outpost, and in Israel's retaliations, possibly in some of these mortar fires, it was reported that a UNIFIL soldier was injured. There was also a gun battle that emerged in the Har Dov area. The IDF retaliated against all of these, specifically targeting infrastructure of the different groups. There were also reports in the IDF there were 5 different IDF attacks against different units along the borders in Lebanon. One of these was trying to send a drone into Israel, one was trying to infiltrate, and one was trying to launch an anti-tank missile. Relating to the violence, Musa Abu Marzouk, which is basically the deputy leader of Hamas, today stated that the organization expected more from Hezbollah. So as part of the ongoing pressure that I've been reporting every day of Hamas against Hezbollah to enter into the fray. However, he also stated specifically that it is the Palestinian Authority's response that Hamas is most disappointed in. That is the Palestinian Authority, the governing body over some of the areas in the West Bank. As part of the ongoing struggle between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, this is part of this pressure. On to some of the political developments and the general trends, the UN Security Council today announced it is going to convene tomorrow in light of Israel's ground invasion. Also, there's a conversation today between President Biden and the President of Egypt, Sisi, and they discuss humanitarian aid, ceasefires, and importantly, resurrecting the peace process. This is only important not because I'm suggesting that peace is about to break out, but because this does suggest that they are discussing what is going to be the future of the Gaza Strip after possibly the fall of Hamas. In addition, the ICC, the International Criminal Court prosecutor, visited today the town of Rafah and stated that his official investigations into alleged war crimes is dating back to 2014. However, it is also going to include the events of October 7th and what happened in Israel, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. In addition, the Iranian foreign minister today stated that his country does not want war to spread further. Earlier in the day, he also had conversations with the Saudi foreign minister. However, previously to his statements that Iran does not want war to spread further, the Iranian president stated that Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip are going to force the region to react. Finally, relating to political developments, Prime Minister Netanyahu tweeted at 1 in the morning in Israel that it is the fault of the head of the Shabak and the intelligence division of the Israeli Defense Force that October 7th was a surprise, stating that everyone expected, and specifically the heads of those units, expected Hamas to be deterred, and therefore the Prime Minister's office should not be blamed. This came under exceeding criticism from both members of his government as well as the opposition. That tweet was later deleted, and Netanyahu himself apologized. Hamas actually related to the tweet later on, stating that it demonstrates fractures and confusion in the Israeli leadership. Moving on to some of the speculation regarding the future of Gaza, the IDF today stated that the war is going to take weeks or possibly months, and that life in Israel must return to normal during these times. The New York Times again reported that in a conversation between Israeli and U.S. security officials, the U.S. expressed concern over Israel's large-scale invasion and stating that some of its aspirations might be impractical. Finally, there was a leak today that the Ministry of Intelligence in Israel, led by Gila Gamliel, has devised a document regarding what might be the future of the Gaza Strip. Gila Gamliel's Ministry of Intelligence, I emphasize, is quote-unquote a made-up ministry. It was made up as part of the need to give more ministries an inflated government. The Ministry of Intelligence does not actually have any intelligence units that report to it. This document, which is still unconfirmed if it's authentic, so I'm not going to report it entirely, I'll report it in a few days, but however, it does state several different options for the Israeli government, one of them being the return of the Palestinian Authority, one of them being possibly setting up some sort of international Arab government, one of them trying to encourage Palestinians to emigrate from the Gaza Strip into the Sinai Peninsula. However, again, still at this moment unconfirmed if that document is authentic, and so I'll probably report more on it tomorrow. That is my update from the last 24 hours, and I'll be back tomorrow.